Well, hello there, everyone. It is Sunday, March 13th in the year 2022. Remember, time did adjust for most of the country. So, who knows what time it is where you're at right now. Remember, especially in this video and all my videos, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney, not an economist, etc., etc., etc. Mazske shares stories based on his experiences, etc., etc., etc. Okay, if you watched yesterday's video, because it did get a lot of views for some reason, more so than usual, but I think a lot of people were just like clicking in, watching a little bit, and then clicked out. So the average viewing time was way down compared to most of my videos. But anyway, if yesterday's video does play out, which I'm not saying it will, but signs are pointing in that direction. But nothing ever plays out exactly like anybody predicts, especially the experts. I've come to realize most experts in the world are wrong, even though you think they're right and people listen to them a lot of times. And I'm talking about the financial world. A lot of times they're wrong. Okay? So with that being said, say we do go into a global recession, how may that impact you? There is no perfect answer because no one knows exactly what's going to happen. However, this is just from my perspective, based on my 54 plus years of living, watching the economy like I've watched from different jobs that I have had. Okay, I watch a lot of Michael Zuber's channel. I watch a lot of his videos. He has a tendency at times, I've never met him in person, he's interviewed on my channel, I've interviewed on his channel. At times he just seems like he's not an optimist at times. He's Debbie Downer at times. It just seems that way. I could be wrong. Maybe it's just the way he's coming across, just like maybe I come across that way. So I'm not saying anything bad about anybody. Nothing at all like that, okay? But I've listened to some of his videos where he really thinks we're going to hit some hard times. And he brings up the 70s quite a bit, like repeating the 70s. Well, I'm a little bit older than he is. I was a kid in the 70s, became a teen in the 80s. I started working my first job probably around 1980, 1981. And as a teenager, I could always find a job. I quit jobs. I got other jobs. Quick. I could always find a job. Okay? So as Mazske proceeded through life, I joined the Navy when I was 19 years old. That was in 1987. I had been working landscaping for 3 years. We stayed busy working landscaping. All right? When I joined the Navy in 1987, I stayed on active duty until 1996. Okay? There was some time during that time period, maybe around 1989, 1990, somewhere in there, the military gets annual pay raises. The economy, I think it was around 1990, had a minor recession. In the military, you don't feel it per se. You still get your paycheck. You don't get laid off. You may get dishonorably discharged if you do something. You may do your 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, get out, but you don't get laid off per se. All right. So, but you never make a lot of money either. But you get perks, you get benefits, you get free housing, you get free health care, okay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not talking about the military in this. I'm just talking about Mazske's experience. We did have a year or two where our annual pay raises were really, really low. I forget exactly what they were, but it seems like they were like 1.6%. And maybe years prior, we got, I don't know, 3 or 4%. So 1.6 or maybe it was a 0.7 or whatever it was. It was just really low. And it's like, well, it is what it is. I didn't think back then, I was younger than, in my 20s. I didn't think about, oh, the price of such and such has gone up. I didn't really pay attention to it, back then. But I'm sure prices, they always go up over time, okay? So I just knew I never had a lot of money. All right. In 1998, I was off active duty. And 1997, I was managing a retail business. 1998, because I had a degree in business. 1998, though, I became a police officer. As a police officer, in the early 2000s, we had years where we got 0% raise. And the economy wasn't doing that bad. It's just my town was doing bad. It was a ghost town at times. It was dying. And it seems like I remember successive years, back-to-back years of 0% pay raises. And that hurt because times were tight back then. So it just got tighter and tighter. All right. And I would work overtime because overtime was time and a half. I'd work overtime so I could make more money. Okay. And I used to debate at times getting another job, like a part-time job. But I was like, I work a weird schedule. And if I got a part-time job, while I'm working the part-time job, making whatever they would pay me, I could be working overtime as a police officer, making time and a half, which was better than most part-time jobs would pay. It wasn't great money, but it was just better than what a part-time job would pay. So anyway, looking at what is happening now, and one last story. 2008, 2009, 2010, somewhere in that time period as a police officer, the economy really got rocked hard. The housing market had crashed, the stock market had crashed. There was a lot of foreclosures. I saw more, and I wasn't investing in real estate. I saw more foreclosures than in my local area than I had ever seen. I pulled up houses in Florida. Online, I was like, man, if I had some money, I'd buy a house in Florida, because some houses were selling at $400,000, and then they're selling in the $100,000. They dropped. It was a major housing crash around the country. I owned a house. I wasn't selling it. My price might have dipped. I was in a smaller market area, Shenandoah Valley. My price might have dipped, but it didn't impact me, because I wasn't selling or wasn't buying. It didn't bother me. But anyway, in my job as a police officer, police departments don't normally lay off. All right, but during that time period, I was told by a supervisor that my position, I was a crime prevention officer, my position was brought up with about half a dozen positions, that position could be eliminated. And I asked the question, well, if they eliminate my position, what do they do with me? I'm a certified police officer. I don't have to be the crime prevention officer. And I was told something to the effect, you probably don't have to worry. You'd probably go back to patrol, but we really don't know. That caused a little concern. My boys were both at home. I was like, what's going to happen here? I didn't know. It's a government job. I didn't know. But my mom was always like, they don't lay police officers off normally. But what turned out, how it played out, 2 persons in the police department, one a certified police officer, the other a non-certified employee, both got laid off. They didn't get fired. They got laid off. And that was kind of like, that was wrong, because just how they did. It was a senior police officer who didn't have rank, per se. I know they didn't like certain things about both these employees, but they didn't have enough to fire them, but they laid them off. So I kept my job. I did lose my position somewhere along the way. 2011, 2012, my crime prevention position was eliminated, and I went back to working the street, but rotating shift work, and then I became a daylight worker, still working patrol, but during daylight hours. So anyway, it is what it is. So from my perspective, with what I saw happen and what I think will happen is, if you work a government job and we go into a global recession or a U.S. recession, you're probably okay. Sure, prices will go up. We'll have inflation. Sure, you may go get a negative 0% pay raise, your annual pay raise, your COLA, your cost of living allowance. It may be 0 one year, or maybe very low one year. You pull the belt tighter, right? That's what we got to do. We learn how to pull the belt tighter. Maybe we travel less. Maybe we put off buying a new car, whatever. Some Americans go more into debt, whatever. But if you're self-employed, I think, or if you work in the business world, both, and if you work, say, on Wall Street, if the markets crash, like big time, like a big crash, if you're a Wall Street worker, I think then people lose their jobs. In the business world, they start losing their jobs. If you work for one of these companies are all about the numbers, the quarterly numbers, a public company. So if you work for one of these companies and they got to pull their belt tight, you see the headlines at times. This company lays off X number of workers. This company lays off X number of workers. If you're one of those workers, it impacts you. Okay? And you can predict based on your job what might happen, but I can't predict for you because I don't work your job. Okay? Now, if you're self-employed workers, think about work that self-employed folks do. They own small businesses. They have gig jobs. Those are the folks I think that can get impacted. When we had the pandemic, they got impacted. Everybody got impacted. All right. But not all of us, but most of us made it through the pandemic and the recession that occurred. But if you're self-employed, that's where things can get tight. Like my buddy who owns an oil change shop. What happened during the pandemic? You can answer that question because I didn't work for you. I did have a vending machine business with a vending machine in there during that time period. I know your business slowed down. but you survived. You cut some employees, though, I do believe, but you survived. All right. So you will continue to survive, I'm sure. My other local buddy here who cuts my grass, you have a grass cutting business. You'll survive. I don't know how it impacted you during COVID. I doubt it impacted you very much. But if times get tight now, could it impact your business now? Could it, and both of yours, could it impact your business? Sure. But what does that mean? It means your income drops. Okay. But what does that mean for me? Because I don't work for you. It means as an investor, someone who's living off my investments, and I know I'm kind of going off in different directions here, I'm thinking out loud, but as an investor, just like during the pandemic, there's potential is there, I may get less rent. I've just gone through a period of 2 or 3 months where I've had roughly 25 rental units. Roughly 5 units I'm not getting rent for. That's 1/5. That's 20%. Yeah. 20% of my income I'm not getting for the past several months. I'm feeling it. Okay. I'm feeling it. Am I going bankrupt? No. Am I not paying my bills? No. So those 5 houses are slowly getting better. Houses have gotten rehabbed. One house is getting ready to go on the market to be sold, so I won't have to worry about that mortgage. Other houses are getting filled. Other repairs have been made. So I'm coming out of that. So with that being said, say I get to full occupancy. If a recession occurs, yes, I will have an employee, perhaps. The more units I get, I will have somebody that will get impacted by losing their job or something will happen. And I may, again, dip. But will I get up to 20% of my houses like I just experienced? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. If I do, I've just been through it. I know what to expect. If I don't, then okay, I'll be okay. But see, on the flip side, I also have investments in oil drilling and mineral rights investments. Those investments are just starting to pick up. Mineral rights in particular, it takes up to 6 months to start getting your revenue checks in. 6 months is coming to an end. So those checks come early April. I will get the first check, and through the next couple months, more checks will be coming in. So if my rent is impacted, those mineral rights checks will be coming in. Same for the oil drilling. They're drilling 2 wells. The first well should be really, really close to pumping. I've been getting monthly revenue because they have 250 some wells, vintage wells producing. So I'm getting revenue check from that. But once this new well comes online, and that'll be another 2 to 3 months before I see that revenue, I should see a substantial jump. You remember, if you watch Tom Gray's talk with me, we talked a little bit about that. Once those new wells come online, the revenue should really jump up dramatically. Okay, that's the hope at least. All right, so bringing it all to a conclusion here, we may have a recession coming ahead. Collectively, we all might notice it, we all might feel it, but we're all going to be okay. Individually, there's always going to be somebody that gets impacted. There's going to be the big-time investor that put $1 million into some tech company, and that tech company goes bust and they lose their money. That happens. There may be an oil change business. Their business drops. They lost employees. There may be a grass cutting business. Maybe they're cutting X number of houses and now they cut 20% less because maybe folks, their belt's getting tight who hired the grass cutter. I'm just generalizing here. And they some folks will start cutting their own grass. Just like the small sub shop owner, maybe they're doing okay. But if the economy gets a little tight, fewer folks buy those subs, and maybe how often do you see a restaurant go out of business? Restaurant business is hard. It's tough. It's tough for a restaurant to stick around long term. Okay. So anyway, something's coming. We live in interesting times. All right. I'm optimistic about the future. So I don't want to be Debbie Downer here. I am optimistic about the future. But I think, I've said this in an early video a year ago, I think during the 2020s, we're going to see some rockiness. There's going to be some roughness. I don't know exactly how long in the 2020s, but I think we're going to see it. We've been seeing it. We had the pandemic to kick off the 2020s. And I think it's going to continue. You'll see the stock market roar at times. You're going to see it go down at times. But I really think, and I'll bring this to an end here soon, is that if you are an investor in real estate, especially if you're working and you got a paycheck coming in and you're investing in real estate, you are going to ride this out just fine. You're going to have the possibility of picking up some rentals, perhaps at a slightly better price, perhaps if you got the dry powder, if you got the money, cash reserves, you might be able to pick up some more houses. But keep in mind, if a recession occurs, banks get tighter for giving mortgages. If it's like the crash in 2008, 2009, 2010, they won't give mortgages to investors. Okay? So have an alternative plan. If you're a real estate investor and you're still getting your conventional mortgage, you've heard me talk about non-QM loans. You could have 1 or 2, 3, 4 units under your belt, and if you can't get a regular mortgage, a non-QM lender, I don't know how a recession will affect them, but I'm guessing that they'll be okay. Because I think their business might pick up. Because I think then folks who can't get a regular mortgage now because the banks tighten their standards, they'll go the non-QM route. Those of you that watch my channel know about this. Watch my Kiavi videos and click on the link below, and that will give you $350 and me $500, I think, if you close on a mortgage. So, and no one's done that just yet. So if you can try to do that, help me out a little bit, because remember, my rents have dropped off a little bit. So anyway, hopefully I've given you something to think about. I'm an optimist. We're going to be just fine. All right. But there will be some of those out there who drop by the wayside. Warren Buffett said something to the effect that when the times get tight, you find out who's swimming naked. All right. Because sometimes people, they live too high on the hog when times are good. They don't save anything. They spend all their money. And then when times get tight, they crash. So anyway, I don't know if this video had a real point to it, but it's a lot of talking, a lot of what ifs, et cetera, et cetera. So what do you think? What do you think? Put it in the comments below. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen? You know as much as I do. What do you think? I don't know. We'll see. All right, so good enough. Hopefully you're going to see another video later on today with me and another very special guest. He hasn't, as of yet, confirmed a time with me, but hopefully that'll be coming today. So y'all take care, stay safe, and Mazske is signing out.